Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm JJ Flazanes, your producer and empowerment strategist. Thank you for downloading today's episode. Today's episode is going to have a little bit of an interesting sound. I'm realizing it's a little echoey in here. We are in Doug Sandler's new office in our new house.
What? That's crazy. A new office? This is the best thing ever. My 2 recliners. I'm ready to go. This is like the ultimate in comfort studio here in Ojai, California.
So I just wanted to preface that we are in a new place. We're in a new home, and we're going to talk about that today. The show is how I manifested my dream home and used the law of attraction to do so. And before we get into the show today, I just want to remind you, if you're listening to this in real time, you have 1 week left to join the Law of Attraction Mastery course. I am doing a 4-week online course. Every time I create a new course, the very first time I do it, it's live. And then after that, it gets repackaged as the course that you can get at any time. So if you're listening to this in the future, the course does exist and you can buy it and it's done and it isn't live. However, if you're listening to this in real time and you'd like to be a part of the live course where you can get personal questions answered by me and we can work through things, I would recommend going to jjflazanes.com/mastery. So the Law of Attraction Mastery course is a 4-week online course. Like I said, it is live. You do not have to come live every single time. It will be recorded. You will get the recordings, but you do have access to me during those 4 weeks to ask questions that I can answer either on the call or through email. So if you're interested, you have until May 31st to sign up. We start on June 1st. The second in-time real live thing to remind you guys of is that the early bird pricing for the Manifestation Bootcamp ends also on May 31st. So if you've ever wanted to come to a JJ Live event, there is one happening this year. It is October 1st through the 3rd in Redondo Beach, California. So you'd fly into LAX. And it is the Manifestation Bootcamp. It'll be the second time I've done it. I expect a much larger room. It's closer to the ocean this time. And it's going to be an amazing, fun, powerful event. And there is an early bird price for the tickets, both the virtual ticket for those of you that live in other countries and don't think you can make it. And those of you that want to come be a part of the live event, it is a limited room and I will close it once it sells out.
I've seen JJ Live events before, and there's music, there's dancing, there's celebration, there's fun. Of course, there's learning, education, time for circles, and some other things too.
And community.
It's probably one of the most fun, most exciting, most all-encompassing type of events. When JJ runs an event, she runs it extremely well. I've been to, how many have I been to?
A lot.
That's a good number. I like
5.
Lot. I think 5 is about.
Yeah, I think maybe 5.
The correct number.
I have to think about that. I have to count that. You are going to be the MC, yes.
Oh,
which
cool.
means there's going to be dancing and dance classes by Doug Sandler, DJ Doug, who will be teaching the thriller dance, the wobble, the cha-cha slide, all sorts of fun stuff. So it will be exercise as well. So anyway, again, you guys have till May 31st to sign up for the early bird pricing. And with the early bird pricing, there's a 5 pay. And once June 1st hits, that 5 pay plan goes away. So check it out, jjflazanes.com/bootcamp. Both of those links will be in the show notes. Please do not go to my website to look for the links that I talk about on the show because they don't exist yet. When I give you the website address, it's because that very specific page was made specifically for this offer. And so all of those pages aren't quite yet in a place where you can easily access them. Whoa, okay.
You put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
I know,
there.
I totally did. I'm a little bit relaxed, I won't lie, ever since moving to Ojai and deciding, and Doug's daughter came to visit us 2 days after we moved in officially. I'm still living amongst boxes and I am tired. And so I have been really taking it slow since Rachel's been here and allowed lots of downtime. I had a facial today and a massage and I feel very relaxed. So I just want to, besides the difference of the room tone that you're going to hear, a little bit more echoey than normal, I just wanted to say that I'm very relaxed and I would like to bring you on this journey because part of manifesting anything that you want isn't coming from an anxious, super hyped, super crazy energy, efforting kind of way. It's actually more in the energy that I'm in right now, which is allowing and taking it easy and trusting and believing. Okay, so it's all of that. So anyway, today we're going to talk about how we manifested our house. And of course, I've asked Doug to join me on today's show because, well, it's his house too. And because he was as involved in this as I was. So anyway, I have a list of about 8 or 9 different points that I thought were interesting to share with you and what I want you to listen for. So if you're listening to me for the first time, I do solo shows every so often. This, of course, is with Doug, so it's not really considered a solo show, but I'm not interviewing him. We are telling a personal story. I've been asked the question, how did you manifest, Doug? And how did you manifest your house? And I want to share the story with you because I want you to listen for the points in the story that where I could, Doug could, you could get frustrated, get turned off, get discouraged, feel like it isn't working, feel, not inspired. Because the journey from where you are to where you want to be isn't a straight path. And contrast is necessary to clarify. So when those things happen, really your relationship, and that's what I'm going to teach you both in the Law of Attraction Mastery course as well as the Bootcamp, how to deal with contrast. Because a lot of times people just think if something goes wrong that, well, they judge themselves, shame themselves, beat themselves up and say, well, I did that wrong. And again, the story isn't over yet. So you're coming in too quickly to judge yourself instead of letting the story unfold. So we're going to tell you the story as succinctly as possible with my notes that I have here about how this whole thing started. And from start to finish, it probably took about 2 years. When Doug moved to California in 2018, we lived in a home in El Segundo that I had been renting with my ex-husband. I loved that house, but we got kicked out of that house. And many of you know that story because it happened on the podcast and it was a little traumatizing. I won't lie. So we moved into a townhouse about less than a mile away from the house and we didn't love it. We were paying a lot more money and we knew that it was temporary. So we weren't quite at that house for about 2 years. So actually, this whole process was a little less than 2 years now that I think about that, because we actually weren't even in that condo for 2 years. So it was around 2 years ago, Easter, let's say. Doug and I drove up to Ojai. I had brought him here before. I've been coming here 21 years. I knew this is where I wanted to come. You get a little bit more for your money up here. It's a different lifestyle. I had always wanted to buy a house here. So I bring him up several times and he likes it, and Doug's easy. So he doesn't care. He doesn't care. Like, let's be honest. Like, this is not a power struggle of like, he has to have what he wants. He's a very simple man. Right, babe?
Simple in a positive way, not simple in like a derogatory way.
Yeah. No, like you're just a kind of a happy-go-lucky guy. And
look, you can put me in a house that is all one level, like I like, plenty of room, has a big yard and a pool and a hot tub. And yeah, I think that's pretty easy to say yes to, no matter what the environment.
Well, I brought you up here, and we weren't telling anybody yet we were looking. I hadn't engaged my friend who was a realtor who I've known for 21 years. But we just came up. We put in Zillow what was, we looked to see what was on the market at the time. We pulled into a development, and we both said, "Oh, I like this. Yeah, this is. I would like to live in this development." Now, the house that was for sale then, of course, we were nowhere near ready. We were just looking. We were really and we weren't telling anybody yet because
what's interesting is it was the first development that we even pulled into to think about an opportunity to move to Ojai. We hadn't looked in like a bunch of other places. So this was the first place. And it's so cool because, again, that was the neighborhood we ended up moving to.
Right. So we start there because we ended up here. And again, it was a fleeting thought. We talked about it, but we didn't focus on it. We didn't dig in our heels and say, we only want to live in this area. We are only looking in this area. We just said, we really like it. You can walk to town. It has a nice feel. We like the homes. We had no idea what the prices were. We just said we liked it. And then that was it. And then we moved on. And then we were up here for a holiday, and Doug and I were staying at a hotel that's literally 5 minutes away from here. And he went on a walk to have a phone call and came in the development from the other direction, not knowing it was the same development, and said the same thing. So again, it's been, we just put it out there many times. And again, we liked the idea. We weren't attached to it, and we definitely weren't focused on it in a hyper-focused way. But again, it's that fleeting thought of, yes, I would really like that. So so eventually, a couple months later, we ended up getting more serious about looking. Now we've saved some money. I reach out to my friend, and, he tells us how hard the market is up here because people retire here. This is a destination place. There's not a lot on the market. There's not a lot of homes being developed. So really,
there's actually no homes being developed. They have a moratorium on building. So it was only existing properties that are for sale, nothing new.
Right. So he told us what was happening, and we were up here hiking, and, we had this conversation on the hike that, who do we know? Can't we just get a house from someone we know? Can't someone just refer us to somebody who hasn't put their house on the market yet?
Yeah, I had purchased a property previously about 15 years ago that the only reason we got the house was because the agent that I was working with happened to be friends with the people that lived in the house, literally knocked on the door and said to them, "Hey, Susie, hey, Charles, you guys, you were thinking about moving? Well, I have somebody potentially that wants to buy your house." So I was thinking, man, what a perfect environment that is. There's no house on the market. There's no bidding war, especially in an environment where there is a lack of supply and more demand. In this environment in Ojai right now, over the last year, every time a house comes on the market, there's 15 plus offers, and they're all above list price. And it's a crapshoot whether we're even going to get it. It's nepotism at its finest here in town. And so I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to walk into a place and say, "I like this place. Are you selling it? Oh, you are? Cool. I'll buy it."
Yeah. So, of course, how realistic does that sound? I don't know. I don't know that many people up here. So, we had the conversation. Wouldn't that be nice? Is basically how we handle that. Wouldn't that be nice? That would be perfect. We would love that. So we start working with my friend, and I love him to death. We're very different. We're literally opposites. And over the years, I've grown and changed and evolved. And I'm not saying he hasn't, but let's just say we've evolved in different directions. And so me as my spiritual person, if I had to do it and I knew no one, I would be interviewing real estate agents who knew about law of attraction. And that necessarily isn't him. So when we look at a property, and even if there were offers on it, I was looking for possibility and and he's very practical and pragmatic. Of course, he's been doing this for a while. And the process during COVID wasn't fun when we first started, because between masks and gloves and blah, 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 this isn't how I wanted it to be.
No, that was a horrible environment. You have to sign papers every time you go in. You have to wear a mask. It's horrible. You basically have no rights when you walk into a house during this particular time. So we did not want that environment. Again, we didn't focus on that, but it was something that, if we focused on every house we walk into, we got to wear a mask and do that whole thing, we would have found a lot of houses that we needed to wear masks and go into. That was not we did not want that to happen.
So I just was getting the feeling, because every time I was excited, he would come back at me and be practical and then say, well, even one house I remember we looked at or we wanted to see, they weren't even doing in-person showings. Literally, the house got sold online. Nobody went there. And I thought, I'm not going to do that. I need to walk into a house. So again, all these different factors led to me being a little bit frustrated of not having a fun experience in my home buying experience. And I said to him, I go, look, I'm the person that gets the shit that people tell me I can't get. And I said it kind of flippantly because, again, in the market of searching for a rental, and Domino's at the door in case you hear that, because she wants to get in, but Doug's going to let her in. Okay, go ahead. When I used to rent places, it's happened so many times where someone will say, you can't get that. And over again, I get it. And I don't know if they're both there. So Sugar's coming in too. Everybody wants to be where we are because we're talking about wonderful things. So with this situation, again, knowing that had I to do it over, or if I didn't know my friends, I would have literally interviewed people who are more spiritual to work with. So I said, look, I'm the person that gets the stuff that people tell me I can't get. I'm just letting you know that. But there was a part of me that doubted that because I've never bought a house before. So you know what? It's worked with my relationships. It's worked with my rental properties. It's worked rentals, meaning when I was renting. It worked with business. It's worked with health. But I've never purchased a home. So I said it, but I wasn't completely sure. I know that is my track record, but again, I've never bought a home before. So we ask him for a referral for the mortgage company, and because we don't have anybody that we know up here, and we end up using someone he's used for a while. And we have no allegiance to her. We don't know her at all. We just start to go through the process, and she qualifies us for, again, less than we can afford, because as entrepreneurs, we don't necessarily want to pay taxes on everything that we could. And we as business owners, and I have a corporation and Doug has an LLC, in order for us to, we get to write off more things because we work from home, and because, whether it be the car or some expenses that can be used for business, that's just part of why you have a business, everybody, because it's easier on taxes, and there's a lot more that gets considered. So because of that, we knew that we could afford more than we could qualify for. So when we started working with this company, they gave us a number. It was pretty low and we didn't love it, but we went with it, and we just figured, well, if it doesn't have a pool, we'll put in a pool. So we kind of, just figured that would be, we planned on that. But then at the end of last year, Doug and I did our profit and loss statements and our, the whole year and our taxes and everything. And so for me, it was like a lot better. And when we put the numbers in for her, our number went down. And I was like, what? There's no way. I just doubled my income and you're saying I qualify for less? And so I got frustrated enough. So here's one of the contrasting points here. Well, besides the realtor and his sort of practical attitude, and I wanted possibility. That was definitely a little disconcerting. But then the mortgage company was infuriating, actually, because I thought, I'm not going to work with her. So I had gotten a referral from our friend Melanie Benson. You guys all know Melanie. She loved her mortgage broker, and Melanie is an entrepreneur. So she said, she was great. And so I had already spoken to her one time and did a little pre-call. So I liked her. She was in the South Bay where I used to live and didn't know how much she knew about this area. But when we talked to her, she said, I've closed 100% of the loans that I tell you I can get. I've never not closed a loan. And she qualified us for the exact number I wanted. So we were very happy. So now we're out and we're looking. We're looking. We've changed mortgage companies, and, we've been doing this for a little while. It's the end of the year. I'm looking ahead at next year, which is now, 2021. I have a trip scheduled in Ojai by myself for a couple of days. Now, in between this, Doug and I did put an offer on a house. We considered it. It had possibility, but it had a bad foundation, and I just couldn't look my dad in the face or my lawyer at the time and tell them that we weren't going to fix it. And it was like $80,000. So I was like, no, it just didn't feel right. So we let that go.
The fix was $80,000, not
right.
The house.
The house was not $80,000, but the fix was $80,000, and there was just too much to do to that house. Okay. But it had an acre of land. It had a lot of possibility. The door was in the wrong place, feng shui wise. Like, just, one of those things that you pull back on. So now we're getting to the beginning of the year, and I'm really starting to get anxious because I have the money now. We're qualified for the right amount, and I really want to get a house. So I have a reading with Crystal. Those of you know Crystal Weirich, and she has been on the show many times, and we have a special if anyone's interested. She does tarot card readings very uniquely because she uses multiple decks. So if you want to check that out, it's jjflazanes.com/tarot, TAROT, to get a special deal through me for a reading with Crystal plus one of her healing crystal products. So I have my reading with Crystal. It's like the beginning of the year reading, and we talk about the house, and she uses 3 or 4 decks to confirm the pull and the question and the answer. And she says, okay, I'm coming up with either they're ones. So it's either going to be January or November. And I was like, oh God, I don't want to wait till November. So it's currently January. I'm like, God, I hope it's this month. So I'm like, okay, it's going to be January. So I already have myself scheduled to come up here for a 3-day work retreat by myself. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be up there. I told our realtor, I'm like, I'm going to be here. So if anything comes on, I can get there in 5 minutes. Just let me know. So I'm up here, and I'm literally checking Zillow and Redfin every hour. So on the next to last day, must have been 4:00, I refreshed, and this house came on the market. And I was like, oh my God. And it was moderately priced. It was well below what we could do. It had a nice backyard, didn't have a pool, but it was very workable for what we wanted. And it had shade, and it was on a cul-de-sac, and it was private, and I really liked it. And I didn't even wait for him. I just got in the car and drove over there. So the sign wasn't even up yet. And I just took a look around, and I liked it. And I was like, oh my. And it's actually less money. And that would be really good. And then we can have money to put a pool in the back. So I'm here by myself and I'm looking at this house and I call Doug and I show it to him. And then panic set in because now I have to get into a bidding war. Now I have to go through calling him and saying, I want to see it. When can I get in? When can we put an offer in? And I've never done any of this before. So I call my ex-neighbor from El Segundo. Shout out to Rhonda if you're listening. Rhonda and Jim got on FaceTime with me. And we talked about, because when you have a price that's higher than what this listing is, I feel like I have wiggle room to offer a lot more to, again, get the house. So, but at the same time, you don't want to offer so much more that the house isn't worth it, and then it's just stupid spending. And I was conflicted. So I had our mortgage broker draw up two different letters. One was $50,000 over and one was $100,000 over. And I was going to start with hoping that they'd come back and like go back and forth. But here it is. I'm by myself. Doug's not even with me. So I said, Doug, can you come up on Tuesday? That's when they're showing the house. And he couldn't because he was busy. And I think this was a Thursday. So I'm coming home on Friday. And he said, well, I'll just come up on the weekend with you and we can look at it then. I mean, the outside of it, not the inside. So I get home Friday and the whole drive home, I'm conflicted. Thursday night into Friday, I'm not sleeping. I'm up. I don't know what to do. I'm feeling stressed about the fact that I'm going to have to go into a bidding war. I don't want to spend $100,000 over asking price and then have to put a pull in, because what if the house isn't really worth that? What if this is all very inflated? So it just concerned me, and I was talking about it and I didn't have a good feeling, but at the same time, I really wanted to move and I wanted the house. It was a nice house. So I got home Friday and I'm relaxing on the couch. Doug and I have dinner and we're talking about it. And then Saturday morning, I wake up with a fire in my pants. And I said, we have to go now. And he was like, now? Yeah, well, let's go now. Okay. And I'm like grabbing my stuff and heading out the door. And he's like, well, hold on a minute. Well, are you going to eat first?
Life with JJ. Life with JJ.
Are you going to eat first? I'm like, no, we got to go. And he's like, well, I have to eat something. I'm like, oh.
I have a lot of food scarcity.
I was like, you have to eat now? Yeah, can I just eat? And I was like, okay, fine. All right, now this is important. It's not just a funny, aside. It's important because we're down to the fact that everything that happens from now on,
every minute in the schedule,
now counts.
Added or taken away would completely change the sliding door that
and the outcome.
Walk through and the outcome.
So he has his breakfast, and of course I'm tapping my toe because I'm waiting for him to be done so we can get on with it already, because Ojai is about 90 minutes north of El Segundo. Luckily I noticed that we had an appointment that we were also going to be missing. So I rescheduled it because I hadn't written it down hadn't changed the appointment in the book. So now we're on our way to Ojai. We get there, we go to the property. Doug says, yeah, I like it. I could live here. If you like it when you see it, sure, we can put an offer in. And I was like, okay. But we just drove 90 minutes to look at the outside of the house. So I said, well, why don't we go look at a few more things while we're here? So we go look at one property that's listed and we drive by it. It's way too smashed into the other houses around it. And it's a little too high for what we have been approved for. And then I realized, my realtor had sent me a text with a couple other properties that were coming on the market. They weren't there yet. They were being worked on. And one was on a street called Shady Lane, which is actually in front of this house. And the other was on a street called Oriole. So as we're sort of heading out of town, I said, oh, wait a minute. Let's go see one of the ones that are coming on the market. And in case we don't get the other house. And I told Doug the name of the two streets. And he said, oh, Oriole. Do you want to tell them about Oriole?
Well, Oriole, I'm from Baltimore. So Baltimore Oriole, my brother, who is no longer with us physically, he was a huge Oriole fan. And I thought, what a fitting name for a property. It's almost like moving into Baltimore Lane or something like that, or Maryland Avenue. So Oriole Lane or Oriole Drive seemed kind of cool. So I thought that would be nice.
So we pull up to the house. I immediately don't like it. I don't like the way it looks. It has a decent backyard. It's, being worked on. And it's not even about the paint or anything. It's really about the shape. So I wasn't crazy about it. And then we're looking in the fence in the back at the backyard. And again, don't love it. Don't want it. But because Doug's insisting on looking in the backyard and we're hanging out a little longer, this guy comes up to us as we're sort of looking at the house, and he says, hey, are you guys looking to buy this house? And we said, well, yeah, our realtor told us that it was coming on the market in about a month. And we were just looking at it. And I said, well, I don't really like it. And he says, oh, well, do you guys have kids? There's some really great school systems around here. And I think he might have asked another question or randomly told us something else. I don't remember everything. But then he said, well, the reason why I came over is because I'm actually thinking of putting my house on the market. Would you be interested in seeing it? And we were like, yeah.
He's like pointing behind him, his house. He came out just to talk to the gardener for just a moment. Gardener doing work on his property. If we hadn't been there at that particular time, he would be inside his house and we would have had no clue that the house was even potentially up for sale.
Jim was not somebody who spent a lot of time in his outside. He worked at a desk inside the kitchen,
facing the
backyard with no window to look out of. So there is no way that, again, that would have happened any other way. So it was the perfect timing. We came into the house with him. He has the biggest lot in the entire neighborhood. He has a pool and a hot tub. And when I had my mastermind in Santa Barbara in November, I had seen this amazing pool cover that I'd never seen before. It was one of those automatic ones. And the pool was really beautiful. And again, it was sort of like a newer pool. It wasn't new, but it was newer than the old pool I had at the house at 868 in El Segundo. So I was like, oh, I really like this pool and I really like this cover. I want this. I said that to Doug back in November. So we walk into this guy's house. Now, the house isn't awesome, meaning like there's some things I want to change and do. It had wonderful, nice wood floors in the main part of the house. It had really nice tile in the kitchen. So there were things that were really good. A nice bay window, really nice wood doors. But it was really going to the backyard and seeing we have a half of an acre with fruit trees, with a pool and a hot tub in the pool, which, by the way, is the best. Because if you like to help your lymphatics drain more and you like to do cold plunges, all you got to do is roll over the wall. You go from the hot tub to the pool and then back to the hot tub to the pool. It's awesome.
The other thing that's really nice about, certainly that's a great feature of the house, but getting back to the sale, the process of the sale for just a second, the previous owner of the home is not the kind of guy that is, I would say, would be attracted to staging. So, the idea of going through I'm going to put my house on the market, I'm going to stage it, I'm going to update the fixtures, I'm going to change all the bulbs, I'm going to paint it neutral colors, all of that stuff probably was not something that he was looking forward to. And to run into somebody literally across the street, ask him if he wants to check out the house, and within 5 minutes, within 1 foot of me stepping into the garage of the house, I just knew, even without even seeing the inside of the property. And then when I got an eyeball on the backyard, without even looking inside the house itself, in less than 5 minutes, I was, okay, where do we sign and how do we do it? And let's get this going. I didn't care. I saw beyond all the clutter and the piles of stuff and everything else that was around the property.
Well, he wasn't going to use a realtor. And I asked him, how much are you listing it for? And he said, well, I've talked to 3 or 4 different realtors and they gave him a price. And the price was about $50,000 more than we were approved for. And when he said, I really would rather not use a realtor, well, here in California, that $50,000 is basically the realtor's commission. So when you remove that, the top of our possibility was really kind of what he'd be getting anyway. So we talked about it. We were in touch with him that night and then the next day. And then when I came up to make an offer on this other place, so we still made an offer on that other place because I didn't want to be left without a house. And again, that place had 14 offers on it and we put a bid in for $50,000 more. And the realtor who sold it was also he did a double dip there. He had the client and he
was selling and
listing. And so they ended up taking an offer for less than $50,000 over, but it was still over. And it was amazing to me.
Showing that we were not going to win no matter what. Unless we were a client of that agent, we were not going to win.
We could have gone $100,000 over and we probably still wouldn't have won.
Correct.
Which at that point didn't matter because then that house might not be worth, like the house that we're in right now had equity when we got in here and we could flip it tomorrow and make a couple $100,000 because of the demand in here in Ojai. And the realtor who ended up working with us, who wasn't my friend, he was the guy that the owner of this house originally He's like a pal. He's a realtor, but he did a favor and he did it for a lot less than normal. And basically that realtor liked to tell us that he has cash buyer ready to take over this property if our deal fell through. And I kept saying, Robin, the deal's not going to fall through. And so I knew that, and I know the demand. So, here's the thing. We got everything we wanted. I didn't get a house that I could move into and not do anything to. That price point would have been a lot higher than what we could afford or could qualify for.
We see those houses come on the market now for around $2 million.
Right.
That wasn't happening.
And yeah, that just wasn't going to be. And so we got the main things. We've got a half an acre of land. We've got a pool and a hot tub. It's literally a blank slate in the backyard. We've got grass. We've got a view. We're on a cul-de-sac, kind of like on a little cul-de-sac kind of deal. We're in this development. There was no bidding war. This house never even made it on
right
the MLS.
Across the street from Oriole.
Yep, and right across the street from Oriole. So it was an amazing story, and I remember just actually doubting a little bit. Like, I'm like, why is he selling us his house? He could get a lot more. He could get $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 more, possibly. Well, he would have had to fix a lot of things to get it to that level. But
he wanted to sell the house as is and get out and just not have to deal with any of the hassle. And that's what we provided. We provided a hassle-free experience for him. Well, as hassle-free as it could be when you're mortgaging a property.
So, go back to my friend who was our realtor. I had to tell him, and I cried because I was really sad that we were not going to use him and he wasn't going to get any money from this sale. But I did say, well, I told you I get the stuff that you tell me I can't get. He's like, oh my God, it was magical what you did. And even Doug was in shock the night we came home. And he was like, oh my God, I can't even believe this happened. Because again, it hit every box in terms of what we wanted that we didn't. We focused on it, but we didn't. We didn't demand that we only look in an area. We didn't wait for someone that we knew. We weren't annoyingly asking everybody we knew, hey, do you know anybody? Hey, do you know anybody? Like, we didn't do that. We just thought, wouldn't that be nice to have that? And then here we are. So, there were moments in time, if it wasn't for the first house I saw, if it wasn't for my reading with Crystal that had me looking on the MLS on Zillow and on Redfin every hour when I was here, and then finding the other house, and then being concerned that Doug wasn't going to like it so much to bring him up here on Saturday when I had just come home on Friday. And, if that hadn't happened, we wouldn't have met Jim. And we wouldn't have this house. So I want you guys to, when you're thinking about, again, manifestations, when you think about law of attraction, it's a story. It has a beginning, middle, and end. And when you hit the contrast, that is not the end. The contrast is the clarifying pivot in the road where it's telling you to go somewhere different. Because if you go down this path, you're not going to get what you want. It's going to lead you somewhere more uncomfortable. So let me direct you. This is the big rock and the boulder in the path that says go the other way. And I know a lot of times people, again, focus on the frustrations and then give up. This market is not fun. And if we had focused on that, I didn't even think I would honestly get a property with a little bit of equity in it because of the bidding wars that are still happening now. You cannot find a property here that, unless you know somebody or you meet someone who's thinking about selling their house, without, there were 14 offers, like Doug said, on that house that we put an offer in on. And that's terrible. So, but we were able to make this happen. And I think it boils down to I wasn't going to move. Here's my thing about my own financial. He and I have different financial relationships, right? And I know part of it's astrological, part of it's upbringing and family and what you get taught about money. And the reason why this is my very first house is because I didn't want to live in a place that I could only quote unquote afford. Here in California, rents aren't cheap, houses aren't cheap, but I knew and believed and trusted that I would be able to get what I wanted one day. And if you told me, well, here's all you can afford right now, why don't you go buy a house in a place where this is what you can afford? I'd say because I don't want to live there. And my day-to-day life experience is more important to me. Because I know and trust that I'll be able to make the money. Money's energy. You can make more money. And for those of you that would like to make more money, for those of you that have jobs, I'm thinking of a few of you in the Inner Circle membership who are looking for extra money to come to the boot camp or to take the course. And, here's the problem with, I think, some of the education that people have in business and in work and in life. You're taught to save, you're told to save, you're told to save, you're told to save, and it's almost like dieting, where you should be doing it, which feels restrictive, which is why most people then eventually sometimes just spend money they don't have on things because they don't feel free. And the problem to me is that it's the wrong emphasis. How about, can I teach you how to make money? Can I teach you how to not only manifest it randomly, but can I teach you how to make more money? I mean, doesn't that feel better? My father would always say, how you doing with money, Jay? And I'm like, Dad, if I need more money, I'll go get another job. Like, I'm going to live where I want to live and be happy, and then manifest the ideas and the inspiration, the connections, the divine timing to take me to the next place, because I trust that that's what's going to happen. And if it doesn't, guess what? I had a fun time along the way. And I wasn't living to save, and I wasn't living to penny pinch, so that hopefully when I retired, if I'm still alive, I could be free, but I might die along the way out of stress from saving so much money. And again, I'm not saying don't save money. That's not the point. The point here is that I know that when it comes to manifestation for some of you, you don't know how to think outside the box because someone else told you can't do that. And the moral of my story and this story for me, I wrote down some things about Doug having resistance to things. Along the way, Doug, did you have any, like, we can't do that, or that's not possible? Or, I mean, did you have any disbeliefs?
Not in the big picture. I think in the big picture, when you said you want to move to Ojai, I was accepting of that. And I think I look at things maybe uniquely in that I first set the big vision, and then I work backwards and try to figure out what's it going to take in order to get, in order to achieve that goal. I would say there were things within the search that I was resistant to. I remember looking at that property that we came back up and looked over that weekend, and I remember seeing things like that, the neighboring houses that were around, and I said, I don't really think that I like that, but I'm not going to let that stand in the way of me, looking at the bigger picture of, this is the only thing I'm going to be able to afford, so I should stop the look right now. I think that we probably would have gotten used to that environment, that other neighborhood. I didn't want to, and so I still had the feeling of, okay, we're going to do this. At some point, we're going to move into this area. I'm going to ignore the fact that this particular house is not ideal for us. So I think money, there was a resistance to part of the down payment, where we were getting that down payment from. I had some resistance to that, but I was open to other options, and I just reframed the way. I had an investment that I was thinking about cashing in, and as I was looking at the investment, I thought, well, I've saved in this investment vehicle for now, close to 30 years. I don't want to give up this investment vehicle, until I realized that buying a house was not spending money. Buying a house was actually an investment of its own. And if I looked at the return on the investment of my money in the property is better suited for the property than it was to the investment vehicle that I've had for 30 years. So yes, there was resistance originally, but then I thought, well, maybe if I just lower my window of skepticism of this investment vehicle enough to see it, maybe there will be something positive. And that's exactly what happened. As you know, I was then no longer resistant to that investment vehicle because real estate's a great investment. You can't go wrong with real estate over the long run. Right,
and especially here. Yeah, there was one other thing you had that I have to say, because in terms of manifesting. So I've never bought a house. I've never gone through this process. I don't know. Doug's been through it. Doug's been through it 3 times.
Credit and other things and all of those
things.
And,
right. And he's a lot neater and more well put together in that department than I am. But once we started the process, I think I felt like, all right, well, I run a business. If I get asked for papers or numbers, okay, I can produce those. That's fine. I don't know what the big deal is. And Doug was like, oh, I hate the mortgage process.
I hate the process.
So we're, now once we started the process, the offer's been accepted. We go through all the hoops, jumps through the hoops and stuff. Then, I think he, in his mind, was waiting for when it was kind of going to go awry, like when there was going to be an issue. And
yeah, what's because I was in the mortgage business, and there's always that one issue that kind of is that thing in left field, and I'm like, oh, there's no way the issue is going to be me. The issue is going to be JJ because she doesn't care. It's like all of these things that all of the stuff that you need. You need X credit, you need X dollars in the bank, you need to have X history of being self-employed. All of those things, I checked off every freaking box. I mean, positively. And when it came down to it, this whole mortgage process, last year when I filed my taxes, it was just easier for my accountant to file it through paper rather than through e-file. So he filed it, and COVID hit. And when COVID hit, the IRS basically shut down for 6 or 8 months or something like that. So they're still in a backlog of processing all of these returns. So when you go to look and see if I had filed my returns, of course I filed my returns because that's the kind of guy I am. Of course I paid the amount I owed in taxes liability because of course that's who I am. And you go to look at the IRS records online, it's like, didn't file your taxes, didn't pay, didn't do any of this. I'm like, what? That's crazy. Calling the IRS, discovered that they are taking over a year now to process the returns that were filed by paper just as we were heading into the COVID era. So I'm like, oh my God. So had I just filed electronically, so I was the reason why we almost got denied. We almost got screwed up. And I'm thinking there's no way because I am like Mr. Pristine when it comes to credit, history. I've been self-employed for 30 plus years, show probably more income than I need to because I'd rather do that. So when it came down to it, it was like JJ knew exactly what she was doing. She knew that she was going to get the property. Didn't matter what her credit was. Didn't matter how much money she had in the bank. Didn't matter how long she'd been self-employed. She was just rolling right through the process, having the feeling before the reality actually happened. And me, I knew I was going to get it, but at the same time, I was thinking, I'm not going to be the reason that got us held up. Focusing on that, of course, law of attraction, you're going to get exactly what you focus on, positive or negative. And I got it. I got a kick in the pants saying, probably could have done it differently.
So he said, I knew there was going to be a problem, but I thought it was going to be you. And
yeah,
I was
very
like,
true.
I said, and look what you manifested. You manifested the problem, and it was you in the most interesting way too, because it was something that we couldn't have foreseen. But anyway, so you gotta watch what you focus on. If you believe it's going to be a problem, you're going to manifest a problem. I didn't believe there was going to be a problem because I've never done it before. I have no frame of reference. And why would there be a problem? I was just following. I had no preconception of this whole process. And so I just thought it hilarious when Doug said, I knew there'd be a problem, but I thought it would be you. Didn't know it was going to be me. So lesson learned, when what you focus on expands and you'll absolutely get what you believe. And I did believe that I would get what I wanted because I kind of, in a way, I kind of joked, not that this house was a deal. I mean, it was in today's market, but I thought, in order for me to buy in California, I need to have a natural disaster in order for me to get like prices that are lower than like.
We need to be right on the Northridge fault line.
Well, we had a natural disaster. Well, it wasn't really natural, but we had a disaster, but it didn't affect prices in Ojai, except it affected the demand. So let's go through just finish up with key lessons. It does start with a belief system. It does start with that you have to believe, or you have to not be attached to the answer. And you have to not because sometimes when you want something really badly, you put resistance up because you feel like you can't live without it. And therefore you block sort of the natural ebb and flow of what's going to happen. And for this house, I mean, we're very happy with everything that's happened. And, it's going to keep getting better because we have all kinds of work going to be done to the house and we keep improving it. And I don't want to be doing it forever. I think I want all work to be done within a 2 to 3 year period because I just like to live in it and just live here and be here and not have to be doing things. So anyway, that's our story about our home. And it took, again, about 2 years, a little bit less than 2 years when we really started looking, when we were really ready. But it took about, 8 months of preparing psychologically, financially. I mean, I definitely was working on my credit and saving money and doing all the things. I qualified. And in fact, my 2020 tax return is actually what qualified us for the house. Thank you, Doug Sandler.
Thank you, JJ.
But again, that couldn't have happened 2 years ago. You know?
Also, just know that when you are looking at law of attraction, is law of attraction working for me? Well, obviously, you know that law of attraction is going to work for or against you. It doesn't. It's always happening, always positive or negative. But know that also when you are thinking about it, law of attraction does not solely based upon vision boards and visioning. It's based upon vision boards and visioning and taking action steps. If without the action, without you putting the action behind the things that you want, you just can't say, I wish I had $1 million. I wish I had $1 million. I wish I had $1 million, and it lands in your lap. What steps are you taking positively to help you get there? Who is in your life? Surround yourself with those people that are believers also in the things that you want. When you can surround yourself with people that believe in the things that you want, there is no stopping you. You know, JJ has told the story many times about the positive influence that the environment that she, you know, our relationship, that it's, you know, the fertile ground that the positive results happen from. It happens because you surround yourself with the right people. So action items, visioning, wanting it, environment, people, your community, your education, the support that you work, with. When JJ talks about things like becoming a part of the Manifestation Challenge or getting into the Bootcamp, you're not investing, as JJ says many, many times, you're not investing in JJ when you go to the Manifestation Bootcamp. You're investing in yourself. You're investing in your dreams, the things that you want. So I would highly encourage you to get around the heat. That's where you get hot. And so you remove yourself from the heat, and that's when you cool down.
Well said. So if you want to just start the process, again, you can join the Law of Attraction Mastery course happening June 1st. It will be live for 4 weeks on a Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time for about 90 minutes, recorded. And if you're hearing this after the fact, it will be available to purchase in July without it being live. But again, the key point here is if you want to be a part of it live with me and get Q&A for you specifically, because that will not happen again, this is your one and only chance for that. And then, of course, the Manifestation Bootcamp, you guys, if you're not a part of the Inner Circle membership or you haven't been to an event before, it really is the fertile ground to really be who you are and be seen and be heard and be understood and connect with like-minded people that you probably haven't, you probably don't have the amount of people in your life that you could just be yourself with, like your true self. And I promise when you come into my environment with the team of people and the community that I have attracted, there'll be a newfound freedom and elevated levels. And again, this Law of Attraction conversation in game, so to speak, has several parts, and we're going to be working on it in both those events. So please go to jjflizanes.com/mastery or jjflizanes.com/bootcamp. I'd love to work with you. I'd love to see you in something soon so I can help you manifest what you want.
All right. I think we've shared this story. This is a good one. I'd love to hear more stories like that. Just reach out to JJ. Let her know what you have manifested in your life recently.
All right, guys. See you next week.